On this week's episode of the Victors Podcast, Michigan crushes Minnesota, and man did it feel good, and in a fashion no one expected. So, for now, after Game 1, I am drinking the blue Kool-Aid. That game was simply great. I cannot remember the last time I was that excited to witness a Michigan offense ever under Jim Harbaugh. The offense was consistent, stable, explosive, and it just worked. All the pieces came together, and they had so many people they could go to. They had so many options. They had so many options in the run game, obviously. And then all the rumors about Joe Milton looked true as of now. He started off jittery, and he left the pocket early sometimes. But after the first drive, he was poised, calm, commanding, and confident with what he was doing. So coming into this game, a big key was Milton not turning over the ball, and he never did. Only one time did I see a potential turnover when he tried to fit the ball in a tight space to Eric All between the safety and the linebacker covering him, but it ended up just being an incompletion, and it honestly wasn't that dangerous, but that was like the only time I could see a possible interception. I never saw him fumble the ball, obviously, and I never saw him look like he was going to fumble the ball, and he finished 15 for 22 with 225 yards and a touchdown, while also rushing for 52 yards and a touchdown. He looked better in one game. He looked better in one game than Shea did all of 2019. And don't get me wrong, Shea had good games, like the Michigan State game, like Indiana, where he looked poised. But in 2019, I think Milton looked better in one game overall than he did at all of 2019. And Milton was like the predator out there, man. It was like the actual predator. He was on a mission, and he came out with a kill, and that kill was Minnesota. The running back room, it was dominant. Whether it was Hassan, Charbonnet, Corum, or Evans, they all could be the starting backs on more than... I think they all could be the starting backs on more than half the teams in the country, Power 5. I honestly think any one of those. I think Corum has a potential. Charbonnet obviously could be a starting back, Hassan too. And I think Chris Evans, I think this year he could be a starting back on any team. I think he's worked out so much in the offseason. We saw what he did. I don't know if we ran any Wildcats with him. I think that was just Hassan with the Wildcats. But we saw him in the goal line scenarios where he got in for the touchdown. He was still elusive as ever. So, let's get into the running backs. On the very first play of the second drive, Zach Charbonnet gets a huge block from Ben Mason and takes it 70 yards to the house. And with Haskins, like I said, I love seeing him in the Wildcat formation on the goal line. And obviously Chris Evans was elusive, and he showed us if you see him, he looks bigger. He has gained strength when you see him flexing, when you see him carrying the ball. He's bigger, stouter. He reminds me of like an in-between between Hassan and Charbonnet. Like, he's elusive but strong. You can use him on goal line scenarios, but you can use him on the jet sweeps, which I wish I saw more of that with Chris Evans in the jet sweep. On 31 carries, 8 of which being Milton's, the team went for 253 total yards, which is just crazy. Blake Corum showed us he could be a feature back, and Hassan showed us how good he is at slipping around defenses. And he had a huge 66-yard run after it looked like they stopped us. So he went left. The hole was originally supposed to open up left. Then he just cut it back right and just went for 66 yards. It was huge. Overall, the running backs smacked Minnesota's defense in the mouth, and Minnesota had no response. To move on to the receiving core, we accounted for 225 yards, with basically everyone getting a reception besides Cornelius Johnson. Eric All, surprising, he showed us how good he can become, and overall I love the play calling from Josh Gaddis, especially with Joe dumping it off or doing the little slip screens to Eric or just dumping it off into the backfield. I love those plays by Josh Gaddis. It was new, and he used it a lot, and Minnesota just couldn't stop it. I also like the sweeps and screens, and I think they opened up options along the offense. I think they kept Minnesota on its heels, and Minnesota's defense did look bad in certain situations, but overall, they don't have a weak defense. They have, it's a pretty average defense, and Michigan just exposed them all game. To move on to the defense, so Michigan's defense overall was great at times, but it also showed growing pains. Even though Bateman finished with 101 yards, Michigan's pass defense was great, only allowing 2 long passes of 38 and 45 yards. That's what they needed to stop coming into the game. That's what all the cornerback hype was about, that we need to stop. And on the island, everyone was freaking out. Vincent Gray on the island with Bateman. And Vincent Gray did match up with Bateman, but I didn't see him that much. I think they switched it out a lot, which I'll talk about later. Tanner Morgan finished with 18 of 31 for 197 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Michigan's front four exposed Morgan, and he was under distress pressure all game and made bad and inaccurate passes. The icing on the cake was when Michigan had back-to-back-to-back sacks to shut the door on Minnesota after they had a big third down conversion. And if you thought Minnesota could come back and Michigan was going to choke, that was basically the final blow. That was the ceiling blow to the game. And when that happened, I don't think anyone thought Minnesota was going to come back. I was still worried up to that point about Minnesota's offense, but then they just fell apart. Especially their offensive line on the pass defense. It was on the pass protection. Pass pro was terrible. Michael Barrett, Josh Ross, Kwity Paye, Jimon Green, and Carlo Kemp stood out to me the most. And Jimon Green, basically, I think besides Michael Barrett, which I'll get into, I think Jimon Green was one of the standout players of the game. He did really well in coverage. Like I said, the pass defense was great. If you watched him, especially in red zone opportunities on passing plays, he stood out. He had 2 incompletions that he forced on Tanner Morgan to Bateman, which was huge, especially in red zone territory. Kwity Paye, I mean, back-to-back sacks. Their defense had 5 sacks the whole game. Michigan stacked up, and Kwity Paye and Aiden Hutchinson. There were so many instances where I could bring up where they were being held, and I will in the next video. I will try to find these instances, but it was just ridiculous. And let's go into Carlo Kemp. Carlo Kemp was huge at nose tackle. Especially, so on run defense, which I'll bring up later, they did have some big holes in the offensive line, but then on pass defense, Carlo just kept getting them around him. Those were big guys. I'm pretty sure the smallest guy on their line was 6'5", and the biggest guy was 6'9", 420 pounds. These guys are enormous. And I was just completely just taken away when the offensive depth chart showed up on the screen before game, and it listed these guys, and I was just insane. I was like, how is Michigan going to get around them? But that's the thing. In a run defense, that's really good. It's really good to have huge linemen, but then on pass protection, these huge linemen get beat because they're too slow. And then what really surprised me was a pass rush because, like I said, going to this game, I truly thought we would stop the run. I predicted that we would stop the run all game, but it was all about stopping the pass. Like I said, their 2 longest passes were 45 and 38 yards, and it was quite the opposite. Michigan's defense held Morgan to a QBR of 41 and only 197 yards, but Ibrahim, their running back, accounted for 140 rushing yards, which is a lot. And it's kind of like this. It wasn't really the defensive line's fault, because although they got pushed around, what's happening is on those run plays, a lot of times, especially down the gut, it was defensive line's fault. It was the linebackers making bad reads. But on the when the running back goes to the open field to the right, let's say, it's really up to the open safety, the free safety, and the cornerback on that side to come off and tackle him. And Makari Page, he didn't make those plays. And I was kind of disappointed with Makari Page, and I was disappointed with Daxton Hill. And Daxton Hill came out of the game in the second half, but I was disappointed with Daxton Hill when they couldn't stop the run. Other than that, I love to see how Don Brown rotated the defense to try and find the best fit for each position. I think at times he needed to stick to one rotation, but overall, I think it was nice seeing everybody get in, and not necessarily. I think it was nice seeing everyone try out for a position, because there was a lot of guys, especially at corner, where like, these guys have all been matching up like equally, and we don't know. So we were trying to find the best fit for them and find the best player. And I think this really helps in kind of choosing who was the starter. And no news has broken on Daxton Hill. He went out during the game, and he didn't in the second half. He wasn't out there, and that's Makari Page was in there. And so I'll make a video when they release news on how big the impact is of him being out, because that's kind of big for Michigan's defense. And I think if Makari Page, he was a big 4-star, and I think if he gets it kind of in the groove with Michigan's defense and starts making those reads and not stops missing those open tackles, I think he's a fast guy. Like, you watch him on the field, but he just looked nervous and he didn't look ready. He looked like he didn't know what he was doing. And Don Brown, I think he'll be able to fix these holes on the line and be ready against almost MSU to stop any type of run. Like, that's all I got to say for the defense. I also want to bring up Mike Barrett. You saw the kickoff return. You saw the forced fumble when he just blew up Tanner Morgan. That guy is a star on the rise. This man was a quarterback recruit. It was like quarterback recruit / athlete coming out of high school. And this dude is like so good. Who knew he would be so good at the Viper position? He was just a beast. There's nothing else you can say about him. He was a beast. I'm pretty sure he accounted for the most solo tackles on the team. And overall, I think he was he might have, besides Joe Milton, I think those two are kind of tied for MVP of the game. But overall, I love seeing the young guys step up. And the defense stepped up when it needed to. And let's not forget, this is a good offense. They had a returning huge line, a solid running back, and the triple punch of Morgan, Bateman, and Bell, who got shut down all game. So that's my overview of the defense and the offense. Some final thoughts on this game is it was just a complete game to watch. From the first drive up until Michigan's second drive, it was uneasy. Michigan was going to have a bad night. But we squeaked it. We blew them out. In the second quarter, we blew them out. In the second half, we blew them out. And just to point out some weaknesses, we need to figure out the kicker position, and we had some kinks on defense. But Joe Milton lived up to hype. Don Brown held a really good offense to 24 points. Our young stars stood up and stood out, and Jim Harbaugh showed up to a game with a QB and with a win. He showed up to a game on the road with a good QB that he groomed. Jim brought to the table the real Jim Harbaugh we've been waiting for since 2016. A great coach with good, stable QB play. And this is one of the most exciting teams I've ever seen under Harbaugh. And if they grow off this win, then I have to rethink my season prediction. Like I said before, last video, we have to wait and see how they do to make an assumption on their entire season. Like, we can't just come out and say, oh, they're gonna be the Big Ten championships. Like I said, until they do it, I can't come out and pick them. But then if they open up the game and they're just running over this good Minnesota team on the road, like, seriously, I don't know. I kind of got to rethink my prediction for the season, just to see them play. And I don't think they're overrated, unless they come out and stumble against like Indiana, or look bad against Michigan State, which I know I'm not even going to get into that. I kind of feel for Michigan State that we lost them back. We lost the Rutgers back in 2014, and I'm not just going to sit here and blast them and make fun of them like that, because we know their pain. We've had terrible seasons like them, and we've lost to Rutgers before, so it's not even like we can say, like, oh, we never lost to Rutgers. Like, we have. And that Rutgers team was pretty decent. I'm pretty sure they finished 7-5, but still, I don't even want to talk about that. I'm not going to take unnecessary shots. Right now, they went to a good Minnesota team and dominated. That's the gist of the game. It feels good to be a Wolverine fan. Hopefully this team can build off their win. And let's just look forward to rivalry week next week and see if Michigan State can put together a solid game against us. This is The Victors Podcast. I'm Jeremy Brown. Go Blue, and always go Michigan.